Hello, lovely people. I wanted to take a break from life today and come back with some more thoughts on gender equality. Gender politics and feminism are hugely complex and dense topics, and I wanted to follow up a little bit. When I say gender equality, yes, it's coming from a person who identifies as feminist, but I wanted to differentiate with these videos that I'm not just speaking up for women against a male-dominated culture. I'm speaking up for men as well and bringing attention to the growing idea that men suffer from a twisted idea of masculinity and manhood. Hence the gender equality rant and not the feminist rant. It's not uncommon for both men and women to scoff at people who speak out about feminist and gender issues, and I've noticed it's largely due in part to the fact that maybe a lot of people, especially guys who do this, they just don't see how they too are negatively impacted. Men have privileges that women don't. Sure. Okay. But we're calling attention to these privileges not because we want an apology. I don't want or need men to apologize to me because other men harass me or other women on the street, or they demean us in a derogatory way, or they treat us as if we're inferior. That's not the point. The point is to help people understand and be aware of how skewed the balance between the genders is as a way for people to actively try to fix it. Okay, so how are men at such a disadvantage despite being on top socially and economically? And be aware that these examples cannot speak for all men, but they probably speak to an average. Let's first talk about image. Okay, looks. Personality. Like women, men are bombarded with images of what the perfect guy is, what the ideal masculine is. He looks like the men in the Avengers. Why not? He's fit, he's funny, he's very attractive, he's more intelligent than the average man was when we were kids, right? He's evolved. There's nothing wrong with a guy who's smart, funny, fit, attractive. There's nothing wrong with a tall, sexy female supermodel either. What's wrong is the insinuation that this is the perfect body, the ideal person, the ideal archetype that we should strive to be. Thor and Captain America on screen, they're kicking ass to get a lot of screen time, lots of great dialogue, they're central to the plots in all the movies. They participate in the plot, they provide a lot to the plot. They're great characters, right? They're also sexually appealing characters. My question for you all to ponder is, do you think that the male Avengers, just as an example, are more, less, or equally as sexually objectified as Black Widow? I bring this up because women are very outspoken about female lead characters, all basically looking and behaving similarly. They really offer nothing of value as far as fictional characters, pop culture icons go. And then men reply with, well, Batman isn't a good example of the average man, right? Yeah, well, no, he isn't. And that's true. But there are far more dynamic and diverse male characters than there are female characters. And if we toss in the notion that female characters are fewer and further between in general, we probably conclude that both genders, yes, they're both ill-represented by pop culture, by movies, but ladies are far more underrepresented. Men and women are both marketed images of how they should look, act, dress, but the angle is different, and so we may initially think that men are being offered, well, we may not think that men are being offered skewed ideas of manhood the way women are offered fucked up ideas of what it means to be a woman or what femaleness is. So let's look at some of the words that could be used to describe the ideal male and the ideal female. So men, they're strong, they support their families, they're leaders by nature, they're authoritative, they're stoic, they're logical, they're providers. Those sound like pretty positive things, right? And then the words described to use women. What's women? They're soft, they're quiet, they're meek, they're sexy things, angels, I guess. They're not natural leaders or authority figures. So the words used to describe men, they don't sound negative. Perhaps why we don't see a problem with traditional masculinity, and more important, the system that favors it, right? I have noticed, me personally, in my time on this planet, that the guys whose personalities contradict the typical idea of manhood, those are the guys that are more likely to struggle with their identities. So, here's an example. I'm supposed to take care of you and provide for you, and I can't, so I'm a failure. I'm a failure as a man. No, dude. You're in your early 20s and you're still in college. First of all, who decided for you that that was your lot in life? That who decided that I'm your charge and kind of your dependent? I wasn't part of that conversation. That's not what I want. It's not your job to provide for me unless we've made that arrangement, which we have not. So your sole purpose is not to work and support me until you die. I'm not for that at all. So why can't it be more acceptable for, say, the woman to work while the husband can be at home in a domestic role, whether or not he have kids? I mentioned this in my last video, that when a man is a stay-at-home dad, he can either be perceived as lazy for not having a job outside the home and making his wife work, or he's a hero for being able to take care of his kids. Now, I have heard some men react to this and that this doesn't work for them. Obviously, they're not lazy, and they choose to be a stay-at-home dad because they wanted to have that relationship with their kids, right? So what is wrong with just being a normal guy being a dad? What's wrong with that? Why do we have to have this extreme lazy or extreme hero ideas of just being a dude being a dad? Another thing I'm tired of hearing from men is that they can't cry or show emotions. I've seen plenty of my guy friends cry. We've been through a lot together. Shit got bad, right? Sometimes. So my guy friends have cried. They've expressed emotions that usually guys aren't supposed to express. They hate themselves for it sometimes, as if having a moment of weakness or complete vulnerability is going to mean they aren't really men. Men don't cry. Sorry, bro, but that idea is a lie, and it's hurting some young men's view of masculinity. If you're a guy who isn't overly emotional, it doesn't mean you're more manly than a guy who is more naturally emotional. It's just how you are as a human being. That's it. If you're stoic and butch by nature, fine. If you're quiet and artistic, fine. What's not fine, okay guys, what's not fine is thinking that being different is somehow wrong and you need to bully your guy friend into toughening up and being a man. What's completely rude and unacceptable is demeaning a person because you don't like or understand their lifestyle, and that is based in ignorance. That's what we need to address. Okay, another thing. Another thing that affects both genders is when we tell a person that they're behaving as the opposite gender as a way to demean or pick on them. We haven't quite reached the point where, say, a straight man who exhibits traditionally feminine qualities is accepted. That's how he is. Those are his qualities. We haven't gotten to that point yet. It is still more of a crime. It's still more unacceptable to be feminine, to be a feminine man than to be a masculine woman. And to me, that says it's culturally, it's more culturally preferred to be a guy than to be a woman. Because if we're calling men girly, or saying they've got manginas, or we're saying stop being a bitch as a way to be insulting and to compare them to women, how does that not imply that being a woman is bad? Right? In reality, there is nothing wrong with being a woman or being a man who is in touch with his feminine side, whether he is straight or gay, it doesn't matter. We need men that understand this. I am so fed up with hearing things like, get the sand out of your vagina, or stop being a girl, or you pussy, or you're such a woman. I personally need men to stop beating their chest to prove how manly they are when there is nothing to prove in the first place. What are you trying to prove? Why are you beating yourself up over something that isn't even important? And also, men shaming other men for simply being something other than a stereotype is unhealthy, and it's wrong. It's wrong. I also personally need men to stop trying to silence me for speaking out about my personal experiences and ideas. Listen, guys, you can't put me in my place because my place is no different from yours. Okay, I want to know who taught you this. that you have power and authority over me? And how do you feel about the notion that you are legitimately better than me because you're a guy and I'm a girl? As a woman, I just want my intelligence, my contribution to society, and my life to hold value to men. I don't want to be superior to men. I just want to be seen as their equals, and that seems like a hard concept for some people to fucking grasp. Okay? Let's talk about pressures, societal pressures on the genders. Men feel pressures that are different from the kinds placed on women. As I mentioned before, men are expected to support, provide for their families. They're often seen as failures if they struggle to do so. They need to have good jobs. You got to get a nice house. You have to have a good car. You have to compete with other guys. Some even still feel that they need to exert control over their wives and their families. Okay? This righteous asshole archetype is still too much of a thing. I have never been... Okay. Let's talk about women. I have never been heavily encouraged to pursue college education or a career by men. And my intelligence and my talents were never a huge topic. But for the past several years, the biggest topic has been my husband's degree and his career. Different expectations and pressures for different genders. I know men prefer me when I'm quiet, so my husband often has to speak for the both of us because people talk right over me as if I'm not even there. Yet, men will talk to each other like it's normal. They can gab all night if they want. But if I speak up, like, why did you just open your mouth? Different expectations for different genders. It's been insinuated that I need a man in my life to be secure and happy, and I'm not very independent. But I've never heard that said about a guy. What if there's a guy who really feels better when he's in a relationship versus a girl who prefers to be single? I feel like that would just confuse the entire system. Both genders have their pressures and their burdens. They're just different because we are supposedly different, even though I don't really think we are. Okay? Yet, like I said, I don't see men and women as being so different. Just like I don't see much of a difference between gay and straight or cis and trans. We all need the same things. Our goals and likes and personality traits are not determined by orientation or gender, and rightly so. Men should not be apologizing because they dominate in almost all areas, socially, economically, politically. Men have the most highest paying jobs. Sure, yes, that is true. They hold the most political power in this country. Fine. As long as men understand the importance of women's contributions and equality and the need for women to have authority over themselves in the same way men do, then we don't have a problem. But alas, this is not the reality. I want men to be their own advocates when it comes to dismantling an artificial system that presumes they are savage animals and their value is in their competitiveness, toughness, and ability to have a career and be a stoic asshole. I also encourage men to see the value in the work that feminists are doing to advocate for gender equality for all of us. Men, you're fine the way you are. As far as your personalities and your likes and your dislikes and just who you are as people, you don't have to be Hollywood gorgeous or have a six-figure income to have value in our culture. You can be unique or you can consider yourself average and there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. Right? I am still a feminist because men's issues are important to me and because I see a need to redefine what it means to be a man. I do. Men don't need men's rights activism. They need people who will speak out about how unhealthy male dominance is for them, especially if they don't fit the he-man mold. The prevailing current culture puts them in boxes that a lot of men cannot fit by their own nature. They just can't. Why would you want to try to be a stereotype, be average, or be like everybody else if that's not who you are? By definition, we may not live in a patriarchy because we have women in positions of power, but we still have remnants of a patriarchal system in our culture, and that's what I mean when I use the term patriarchy. The culture teaches that men are above women, and women can be dominated or they're objects by nature, and women still do struggle and bear the brunt of this system, of the systematic sexism, more than men do. but it doesn't negate the fact that men still struggle. Okay? The interesting thing that no one seems to talk about, and I really want to talk about it, is what about the men who truly hate women? What about these true misogynistic men? I want to know what happened to those men to make them hate women, to make them think that raping women, demeaning them, beating them, abusing them in any way is acceptable and normal. What kind of experiences have these men had in their lives to make them think throwing a tantrum and calling a woman a cunt and lashing out at her was acceptable, even though this particular woman maybe never did anything to you? What happened to these men in their lives to create such a hostile, like they hate women, why are they so hostile? What happened to them? Okay? What about this one? Like, you hate women because your wife left you and she took the kids and now you can't get custody and you can't afford child support anymore. That's a real thing. Those are real issues. And it sucks and it's wrong. It is wrong. There are bad women out there, okay? It's awful and I'm sorry that this happens to men, but what if we talked about how feminism promotes the idea that women are not maternal angels by nature and that women should not just be given custody of their kids just because they're the mothers, and to hell with loving hands-on fathers. All right? Men can and are abused, raped, and victimized by predatory women. What happens when this happens? The men are told they should have enjoyed their rape, or that women can't rape men, or maybe she just wants your dick, dude, just take it. Like, hello. Of course these are problems for men. Of course. Feminism, however, would love to see gender politics change in this regard to help men as well. On the flip side, people like to attack the feminist movement for hating men and wanting to get rid of them. Feminism is not a hate group, okay? Misandrists are not feminists by definition. However, what about the women who truly hate men? Right? I know everybody thinks feminists hate men. That's not what a feminist is. Okay, so what happened to them? What happened to these women? What experience did these women have to make them think so awfully about men? If anti-feminist men want to do something useful and participate in the dialogue, they would ask that question, and if they really meant business, they would try to fix the underlying problem. Okay? These guys like to call out outspoken women on what they perceive to be, feminazi supremacist attitude, and they're failing to realize that maybe some of the women that they perceive as extremists have had major life experiences, and that catcalling and harassment, things like that, bullying, are triggers for them, and you telling them to calm down, it was just a compliment, exacerbates the feelings of being objectified. It's a trigger, maybe. Men aren't born hating women. Women are not born with disdain for men. That behavior is learned through upbringing and through personal life experiences. I have had some abysmal experiences with guys in my life, and it just made me think how badly we needed to change the way we raise our children and how we teach them, so that boys and girls can grow up with an understanding and a respect for the opposite sex, as opposed to an eventual and inevitable learned hatred for them. When we raise generations of children in such gendered ways, where girls are soft and play domestic games with toy hoovers and dolls, we're teaching them that they're so different from boys, and then we raise boys to be tough and competitive and that they shouldn't play girl games. When this happens, when we segregate children so much, we find that, of course, they're going to be at odds with each other as adults. And maybe girls aren't going into political careers or engaging in science or math or pursuing leadership positions because they were always taught those were the jobs for boys. That's what boys do. So now, when this woman goes into science, technology, engineering, mathematics careers, she may experience sexism because everyone she's working with, all the guys, they were taught or raised, maybe even subconsciously, to think that she shouldn't be doing that job in the first place. And then you've got mansplaining and all that bullshit. So by changing our thinking and changing the way we raise the next generation of children, that's the strongest tool we have to battle the sexism that plagues both genders and even all the different orientations that exist. In conclusion, I am so happy that there are growing numbers of boys and men in this country that identify as feminists and who support the notion that men and women are equal. Right? I cannot wait to have a child soon so I can begin to enact the change within the next generation that our culture needs. And I also need to express my sorrow that there are men and women out there who only know how to hate other people and spew negativity, and they justify it because they don't happen to agree with somebody else's opinion. Okay? There's no justification for abuse or bullying or hate-filled rants. There's no excuse for it. You can't justify that shit. I wish misandrous women would stop identifying as feminists, and I wish, anti-feminist or sexist men would understand we're not trying to change them and make them into robots. And I wish that misogynistic men would realize that when they try to silence me or tear me apart, they are proving my point even further. Because some of them can't stand outspoken, educated women, and that too is a problem. If your initial reaction to watching this video and other videos like it, where men and women discuss their experiences and thoughts about feminism or gender equality, if your initial reaction is to go on the attack and find personal insults and hateful remarks to hurl at us, then congratulations, guys. You're part of the problem because you're not contributing anything of value to the discussion. You're just ignorant. But good news, ignorance can be fixed. Okay? So I truly hope that I provided you with some new ideas or maybe challenged an idea that you had, and I hope that you enjoyed my video. And I'm sure I'll probably have some more things to talk about in the coming weeks about gender equality. So stay awesome.